I mean, the whole thing is just a mess if you think about it. All of this stuff that's happening corresponds with a much larger event that, again, nobody ever talks about, or we're completely sidetracked of because we hear about anthropogenic global warming, that we're not thinking about, actual natural climate changes, climate cycles that our Earth might be going into that could also have an impact on our food supply. And these cycles are very, very significant. Throughout history, they have always had significant impacts. We're experiencing right now the worst drought in the West since the 1500s. It's important to note, since the 1500s, because it's not necessarily global warming. The 1500s was much earlier than anthropogenic global warming. This type of drought did occur, though, in history, and it was a drought that occurred to the point where it wiped out some civilizations out west. Most of the food in the United States, like vegetables, nuts, fruits, all of those things, are grown west of the Mississippi, this area that is experiencing extreme drought. These same conditions also affect the parts of South America where a lot of the soybean and corn and other vegetable production has picked up over the past several years. They experienced really bad drought conditions. It actually pushed a lot of those prices up higher as we got towards the end of the winter. Nobody was paying attention to it. I did a video on this last fall explaining how the repeat of a La Nina was going to emphasize and make the situation worse from what we experienced last year. And that's what we're going into this year. Extreme drought situations before we're even starting out the growing season all the way out west, and it's actually hitting now here in the southeast. We have been working on our gardens since February, you can believe it, and one of the issues we've run into is water as well. We've had to bring in more watering systems than we have in the past. So this extreme drought is impacting a lot of our domestic food production in ways that you don't hear people talking about. You hear them blame it on Ukraine, you hear them blame it on all these different theories, but this is something that is natural. It's been occurring and unfolding over the last several years. I keep trying to explain to you guys how yields have not been improving enough to keep up with demand since 2018. And that's just a fact. If you look at it, our stockpile to use ratio has been slowly declining or leveling out. Before that, it was skyrocketing. It was going up. A lot of that has to do with climate. Our climate for almost 100 years was when what we call a grand solar maxima period, where the sun is actually doing a lot of the work for us in growing food and food production. The more carbon you have in the atmosphere, it's a fact that the warmer it is, the more CO2 that is released from oceans and things. That is plant food. It feeds the plants. You get a greenhouse effect. That's what we've had going on for the last, it's been growing for the last 100 years. It kind of has come to an end. We have entered a different cycle in that overall pattern, and you're starting to see it, you know, especially if you're connected with growing, if you're connected with nature, you're starting to see it and just about everywhere you go. But that decline in solar activity, although it's been slight, it's been impressive. And the other thing that you're going to start seeing are more of these La Nina cycles. We just had 2 La Ninas, pretty large La Ninas, back to back. This one's going to run all the way through the summertime. These La Nina cycles create a devastating effect on the western United States and South America, as I just mentioned. Farmers had to cut back production last year by 40–50% in some areas because they didn't have enough water. One of the things that I did a video on, remember the drones? You probably forgot about that. The drones over the west, the drones that, if you track the area they were flying in, it was almost like they were flying right over the Ogallala Aquifer, which is nearly dried up. I mean, so you've got a lot of these conditions that are happening out west, and farmers are having to cut back again this year by 50%. If you pay attention to the news, you've got almond trees, pecan trees, peach trees, entire orchards being cut out. These things don't grow back next year. They don't grow back for several years. Same thing's happening with coffee trees down in South America. I mean, you're losing massive amounts of longer-term growth crops of fresh fruits and vegetables and nuts that we all depend on, almost within a 2-year period. And it will take years, it would take years of good conditions for us to rebuild that food infrastructure. So with all these other things going on, you have these climate impacts, these impacts that are impacting every single one of us, and you don't notice it because you're too busy looking at all the other distractions that are out there. There are so many things going on. If it was a coordinated conspiracy, which it very well may be, who knows, it would take a much larger coordination than just a single country or 2 countries. If there was something to that scale is so large that is not something that you or I could do anything about. In my opinion, we could drive ourselves nuts chasing around theories, trying to point fingers, trying to get to the bottom of what's causing this or what's causing that or who's behind it. If there was something going on, I think it's much bigger than anything any of us could do anything about, except for this. Instead of sitting there trying to figure out what's causing it, what's happening, you need to start taking action. I don't want my kids starving. I don't care what the reason is. I don't care if it's just climate, bad luck, or if there are people out there who are, causing ruckus on our food supply. I'm not gonna let my kids starve, and I'm not gonna sit around trying to theorize what it's about. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get out there and grow something. Even if you live in an apartment and you can't have a pet, you can't have an animal, you could grow something in a pot, and every ounce, every pound of food that we're able to produce, the more successful we are going to be as a community, as a family, the better we're going to be able to take care of the people that we're responsible for, our children, our wives, our grandkids. We have a responsibility. If we just spent literally a few hours every day fulfilling that responsibility instead of waiting for somebody else to do it and pay them for it, if we just spent a little bit of time every day trying to fulfill that responsibility ourselves, it would make a world of difference. It would make a world of difference on a lot of the problems we face in society today. And that's one of the most important things that people don't understand about self-sustainability. Self-sustainability is something that's natural. We should all naturally be, sustainable. We should know how to do this stuff. We should grow our own food. We should work for it every single day. And some of you might say, well, I work for it by earning money. You've seen how much your dollar has decreased in the past 12 months. Right now, growing food is literally like printing money. It's like printing your own paycheck. The more food you grow, the less money you're spending. That is money in your pocket. The more food you grow, the excess that you have, the more you have to trade. And there is nothing wrong with growing food or livestock and trading that with other community members. In fact, if, SHTF happens, then all those people that you have created a trading program with, whether it's for cash or other things, however you want to do it, they're all of a sudden allies because you have a resource that they've become dependent on and it's localized. That's another very important thing about all of this. So I'm going to spend a little more time focusing on how you can grow some of your own food, ways that we have cut costs, because we've been expanding rapidly this year. And we're not rich people. We've had to figure out ways. The concept is to use your own ingenuity to learn how to grow things. But you need to start doing it now because these situations are not getting any better. And if they are, as people fear, if they are as many of us hypothesize or often theorize about, then if you look at the pattern of escalation, the escalation seems to be getting faster and faster and faster. You will go hungry.